we'll be discussing on the BTP Security, IAS, IPS, and IAG. So we'll be having a walkthrough of that, and we'll try to talk about few of the use cases where BTP and SAP S/4HANA work in combination. How does BTP overall has provided a new dimension to S/4HANA security, and then how did SAP BTP emerge? What was the requirement of it? A brief history about it as well. So we'll be talking about it. That's a quick agenda. I think, yeah, the majority would be your SAP BTP, and we'll be talking about your cloud identity services. And I think that's mentioned, but yeah, it's only one topic, your identity access governance or your SAP IAG. So before we do this, I think let me just show you a couple of items which were pending from yesterday. So regarding the materials available which you can leverage for your Activate methodology, whether they are Excels, PDFs, I think this is something called as SAP Roadmap Viewer. So let me just, ping this link. So you would need to leverage this, and then I'll just guide you quickly how you can use this. So let me just go here, Control C. Yeah, I've pasted it. So you just need to go to this website, go.support.com/roadmap viewer, and then it will take you to this. So once you are here, just go to explore all roadmaps. So then here you'll have your cloud specific methodology, on-premise methodology, upgrade methodology, and general or cross topics. So mainly we'll be working on your cloud specific methodology because most of you would be working either with the public edition, and in public edition also initially we had 2 system landscape, but now they have upgraded to 3 system landscape. So unless a client is on 2 system landscape where we only had like a development and production, like a non-prod and a prod system, now we have a 3 system where we have got perfect development, quality, and production. So you have it that way. So if you are using it, you can feel free to go here. But I think, private edition or the private cloud edition is something which mostly would be using. So we can just click on this. So once you click on this, it takes you here. It describes about what's the Activate methodology, how does it align with as SAP's clean core strategy, and where all it can be used in your system conversion, new implementation, or the Rise with SAP framework. You can feel free to read about it. But yeah, the next would be your content. So for each of the phases, whatever content is mentioned is available. You can feel free to check it out here. Watch the discover phase, what all things are mentioned. For prepare phase, what all things are required. So I think we have discussed all of this because in our sessions, we have given dedicated time to each of these phases. So not all of this would be required by us because this is again for all the teams which work during any implementation. It will be your leadership team, it will be your technical teams, your functional teams, your business teams. So for all of them, I think it's all combined that how would it work. But yeah, if you have time, good to go through it. You can get to know what other teams are also doing or what's the expectation from them. So here also you'll have all phases, but the important bit where you'll get all the documents is your accelerators. So you can directly jump onto the accelerators, and then once you are here, you can either there would be again multiple files which are there, and then all of it is not something which is helpful for us because it's also there for all the teams which are working. You can just come here, feel free to just search for, say, we need authorization, so let's search for authorization. So it also directs us to few of the like SAP KBAs or notes where you can go through. Let's look at first. Yeah, like it's pointing us to a blog. So it's also a detailed blog for S24 for Fiori apps, which we have discussed. You can go through it. This is about a KBA and the other thing is also about KBA. So one thing is authorization, the other is if you search for roles. So like it's about the private S/4HANA roles and responsibilities in general. Then it takes us to understanding the SAP business roles, creating your custom business roles. So there are a lot of either blogs are available or there are many standard files also. Sometimes it points us out. So you can feel free to explore this where you'll get to know that for each of the phases, starting from your discover phase to your like run phase or deploy phase, what all files are applicable to you. So if there are some files which you can use directly, there would be Excels, there would be PDFs, PPTs, everything. That all of like it's basically your entire repository of all the things. So you will need to just search for some terms, or if you are looking for directly files, I think you can just come here and then you can just try to search it. So if I want to search for a naming convention, let me try to go it. Okay. So we have it quick guide to naming convention for SAP launchpad entities. So this is also something which you can try to see before you go on. But I think launchpad entities is not something which is some we will look into. I think we had a role naming convention as well, but I think yeah, it's present in the public cloud file, I believe. So we'll look into that quickly. But yeah, I think this is something which you can feel free to leverage. And then you can just come here, select the respective product in which your client has implemented or trying to implement. And then you'll get to see the related files, related documents, everything. So if I go to accelerators here and try to search for yeah, role naming, they have not given it. Okay, let's try to see by rules. Okay, yeah, how to set up a naming convention. So this is what something I wanted you go through as well. So this is a very good document. I have also worked parallelly with SAP while creating it because there were a lot of recommendations which we provided. So this was for a public cloud three system landscape. So this is a very good document which you can feel free to leverage, where it tells you that what all are the parameters you need to keep in mind while creating a naming convention. So if you have a existing naming convention, just see that if it is following this thing, identifiability, reusability, and consistency. These three are the major parameters in which your naming convention should abide by. Then basically it will take you that what all are some of the sample naming conventions. You basically can't start with SAP because these are your standard role naming thing. You can start with BR, or usually we prefer a Z suffix or prefix, Z prefix, Y prefix, or depending on how you want to name it. So yeah, you have certain examples that whenever you name it, like for this is for public cloud where you have a limitation of 34 characters. So depending on how many characters limit we have, whether it's a private cloud, so we'll need to see in GUI how many character limit is there. So depending on that, you can just feel free to take it as a reference that from where your name would start. If you are keeping it as YHP, then H here would mean as for HANA Cloud. So same, we can also choose P refers to your basically which target system, whether it's production, development, or quality, or test, how would you like to call it. Then basically it's your organizational specification, then your line of business, then a dedicated section for what is the role about, whether it's a sales manager, whether it's a manufacturing unit role, so that you can do. And yeah, if there are any sub organization or there's sub organizational specification, that also something we can put it. So this is just one of the document which is available there, which is a very handy document which you can leverage. I'll also get this one also uploaded there. But yeah, I think since you know the route now, you can also go ahead and download it directly. So there are a couple of examples which are given. So earlier there was only business roles which were there. There was nothing for spaces and pages. But then yeah, I think we worked with SAP and ensuring that spaces and pages are also there, because and that's also in line with your business role. So you don't need to have it separately or keep it different. So how do you see this is, instead of, I mean, entirely everything remains the same, and just towards the end, either you have your underscore S0 or P0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, it's basically your counter. So if you have only one space, then it will be just S0. If you have two spaces, it will be S1. So 0 refers to 1 here. And then similarly for your pages. So if you have a role and a space which are corresponding, I think this becomes very handy. But yeah, if you are using your space in multiple areas or page in multiple areas, then you may not use this concept entirely, because this is for like one-to-one thing which they are recommending, that one space per role, and that space should be used only for that role. But that may not be the case for every client. But yeah, this is a reference which you can use, and I think this will help you in designing a fresh naming convention if required for any client. So yeah, I think these are all basically screenshots from your public cloud system. So in case you happen to work with a public cloud, these are there we do not have any SAP GUI. So there, if you want to create a role, we basically need to go into Fiori application, do this, and then this is how the interface looks like. You can just ignore this, just focus on the naming convention bit here, which you can use for your private cloud or your on-premise methodology as well. And yeah, you can ignore this for now. This is only for the public cloud, which has been recently introduced, the business user groups and role groups. This concept we still do not have in the private cloud or these are only for groups. So you can ignore the groups part, but yeah, this is one of the document, and this is very good document which you can feel free to go through. So similarly, there are various other documents which are present for public cloud, which are present for private cloud. So overall, this roadmap viewer is your very golden repository, you can say. So if you're going for any other product as well, whether you're going for Ariba, Fieldglass, Success Factors, that's also something which you can just come here, and then there are standard documents which you can feel free to leverage. But yeah, we need to be cautious because these documents keep on getting updated. So just look for the latest one. And I think that will help you in going through any of the phases which you are working. And I think if the project has not been started, it's a good time to invest in this. You can go through all the training documents which we have made. That's also made from these documents and lot of multiple SAP related blogs and whatever industry knowledge we have gained throughout the years. So all of it will basically help you in understanding the SAP Activate methodology, the SAP Greenfield implementation, Brownfield implementation, and dedicated to whatever we have done in the Fiori security space as well. So all of it combined, I think, will definitely make you fit for implementing any S4HANA solution from a security standpoint. But I think it's now based on whatever we have did, you can consider yourself not only security, but even being an implementation partner. I think you need to know much more than what a security consultant would know. So, because I think we will act as an implementation partner for the client, we need to know much beyond than the security concept. So, that's where we spent a good amount of time in the Activate methodology, in the other aspects as well, where it's not only security, but we need to know about what other team will do and then how to make them do, and then so that it doesn't come to us. So once you go through these documents, I think the more and more knowledge you'll gain and you'll be more clear once you start working on an actual client project as well.
So how do you check this BTP version or cloud version usually?
Cloud version as in, which product the client is using, you're saying?
Yeah.
So I think that you'll get to know, directly if you can check with someone who, from a PMO team or whoever is responsible to tell you that which product are they going for. Because just looking at the system, you'll not get to know that which is it. Because I think if it's a GUI, then definitely it will be your private cloud or your on-premise SAP. But if you do not see the GUI itself, it's all on cloud, then it's your public cloud. But this is something information which you'll need to check with the team who is responsible for procuring the systems, because this the business teams will do basically, or the client will do. So I think that you'll get to know from them that which is what is it what you will be actually working on. So these are the ones which are available. One is your S4HANA Cloud Public Edition, 3 System Landscape. It's in short, it's called as 3SL. Then it's your SAP S4HANA Cloud Public Edition, 2SL. Then it's your Rise with SAP S4HANA Cloud Private Edition. Mostly it would be this, because this is the latest one which is being promoted, and then SAP is pushing this as well. If client needs to go for S4HANA conversion or S4HANA implementation from fresh. So I think this is what you'll need to check, and based on that, maybe you can just come here and then you can try to see what all documents are available in standard by SAP.
Okay.
But the exact version and everything, I think that we have seen, right? That you can just go into the settings in SAP GUI and see. But
that I know that thing. Yeah.
Correct. But the overall product is not something which we can see directly unless we need to know that information. So that's why I'm saying that we need to check with the actual team who are responsible for procuring it or who are working with client to know that what all products are in scope. I think that's something which we should definitely ask them whenever we start any new project, that what all are the products which the client has procured and which is in our scope, which we'll be working on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, I think here is where you'll get almost all or at least majority of the documents which you want. And if not, then definitely there's this SAP help portal which you can definitely go and scroll upon. Or yeah, I think you'll have your own documents as well. Just feel free to go through your own repository as well. So I think all of it will definitely help you in making sure you have the required documents available. And then from a knowledge wise, yeah, I think once you get time, maybe go through it on a timely basis, because all of these documents are quite lengthy. So you need to invest time. You need to invest time in parallelly doing the hands-on as well wherever you feel it's required. So I think all of it will make sure that you have the necessary resources available. But yeah, the more you'll work on the actual client environments, deal with actual client related problems and concerns, that will make you more full-fledged SAP S/4HANA consultant. And yeah, I think that's it. I think for this, I think you'll get to know. I've pinned this link. You can feel free to go through it, explore this at your own pace.
Sample requirement templates means how you collect the requirements from the functional team like that. Is there any sample template?
Sample template for functional requirement gathering. Let me see in my repository if I have anything. But usually it's like there's nothing, I mean, as a sample template, because it depends on, like, first of all, how would you check is basically first check with what all business processes are there in scope. And depending on that business processes, the first thing you'll need to check with them is what all Fiori applications are they planning, if the Fiori is in scope, assuming it will be. And depending on that, then further, I think you can validate it whether those Fiori apps are available in the apps library or not. And I think based on that, you can further make a document related to your catalogs, groups, or spaces, and like that. So there isn't anything sample, but I'll check on it if I have, because my way of approaching is it starts with the business processes. So if there are multiple business processes, then definitely you'll need to have a separate document for each of it, because each business process will come up with a different criteria. So yeah, that's how you'll need to approach, but nothing as such which is like standard also given by SAP, that how do you need to approach it. And nothing I remember I've created, but I'll check on it. If there's anything, I'll get it uploaded.
Actually function team will give the app ID and we will provide the technical catalog and the group and space pages and all.
Oh, no, functional teams will, I mean, they can give you app IDs, or they can just tell you the app names also. Anything, if they are able to give you app IDs, it's good for us. And then the next thing, everything is something which we would need to see, because that's something which is good for us also, that for us to decide whether how many catalogs are we going for. So suppose if they say that they want to go for 10 applications, and in that 10 applications you go and you see that if we go for the standard, say, business catalogs copy, if you are trying to do. So for say 2 of the applications are present in one business catalog, but it is bringing in some other 5 to 6 applications as well, which is either, if they are only for display purpose or not that risky, you can still go for it. But how do you want to customize it is something we need to decide. So for those 10 applications, if we are planning to create, say, just 3 catalogs, so that's on us, that we'll create 3 catalogs. We'll make sure that there are 4 applications in one, 3 in another, 3 in another. So that will contain 3 catalogs and 10 applications. So they'll not give you catalogs, they'll give you app IDs or app names. And then how we learned that, how we'll create the catalog, how we'll put the tile and target mapping in the catalog. So depending on that, we'll be basically creating or owning the entire catalog, group, spaces concept. And it is good for us also, because it will be in our control that how do we manage any new applications coming in, any application removal also. Because if they will give us catalogs, then again we'll need to basically see that if because they'll give you standard catalogs only. If they give you, they'll also do the same. They'll go to Fiori apps library, they'll search for that which catalog is present, because they are not aware that what is a technical catalog, what is a business catalog. So if they give you technical catalogs, then that technical catalog will have like almost 15-20 applications in one. So good to tell them that just give us Fiori IDs, and then it's up to us that how do we plan to put it in how many catalogs. But yeah, from functionality standpoints, we will need to discuss with them that how many of them can we group in one, and how many of them can we segregate in another. So yeah, that's how we'll need to do.
Thanks.
Okay. Coming to SAP BTP. So we have heard about this term in and out. It's being mentioned whenever we talk about cloud. BTP is something which comes in. So overall, it just stands for your business technology platform. That's the full form of it. Initially, this name was not there. It was called as SAP Cloud Platform, SCP, and then there were further name changes. And then finally, it was turned to your SAP Business Technology Platform. So basically, as we are seeing in this, so it basically has a multiple layers. Whenever we talk about BTP, the multiple layers would come in. So the bottommost layer is basically your technology platform layer, where all your integrations, data and analytics, the AI, all those services basically are present, where they are like from there, all your backend operations are being performed. So you can consider whatever new services are coming in, that will be in your bottommost layer. And then further, since those services need to work for any per dedicated solution areas, then comes your respective solution areas, like we even have for our ECC areas as well. You have your HR, you have your CRM, you have your ERM or enterprise resource management, spend management. There is this transportation management and lot of other solution areas as well. So how all whatever we have, like we have application development, we have integration, we have data and analytics. So all of it is present, but then how do we leverage it for which solution areas is something that from a solution end we need to see. So being a technology consultant, we'll basically need to work in the bottommost layer, which is a technology space. Then it's further your solution areas will need to connect with the solution teams and then try to see that what is their expectation whenever they are implementing BTP, what all services is something they would like to go for. And then finally your business processes. So that's where is your topmost layer, where you'll need to see. So even for HR, if we see your any CRM, like what all business processes is something they are going for, and related to that, we'll need to finally understand the overall requirement and then see that how will we do the overall implementation of BTP. So when it comes to BTP, it's not like you'll just implement or get BTP and then you will be able to do anything only with BTP, because BTP is your platform as a service, or PaaS as we call it. So it will just act as a platform. So if we talk about our SAP GUI or SAP on-premise environment, it's already having a platform for SAP GUI. So you do not need to host it on any other platform. You already, if you have your SAP GUI, you can just log in there and then we can just play around with the transactions, and then that is in turn connected with your HANA database or any other database if it was ECC, and then it was able to deliver the business results. But when it comes to cloud, there is nothing like SAP GUI which we have available there. So we need to have a platform where we can host our actual client applications. So it needs to be there. So today, if we are going and just opening say a mobile application in our mobile, so that mobile application needs basically a platform. So from iOS standpoint, like iOS is providing it that platform, and when it comes to SAP, that BTP is basically acting as a platform where you can host your any of the business related applications. So the overall purpose of BTP is basically to provide a platform to your applications, where your overall hosting of any applications, whether it's your from a security standpoint, whether it's IAG, or from a business standpoint, it's your AI related application. So all of it basically will have your BTP as a platform where you can host it. And yeah, like coming to a brief history, as I said, initially it wasn't called as BTP, it was named as SAP Cloud Platform, where initially SAP basically started it as an investment management, where because since there were a lot of other cloud ready applications which were responsible for maintaining the ERP directly in the cloud, like it's your Salesforce is there. Oracle has moved already to SAP, like Oracle has moved to cloud, I would say. So in that way, SAP didn't had anything proprietary. Like it had Ariba, it had success factors. Ariba was something they procured from another vendor. It was initially called as something else. Then SAP acquired it. So overall, SAP were having some of the other cloud applications, but yeah, They didn't had anything proprietary where they can say that, okay, we have a wholesome solution available for us, that if any client wants to move to cloud, then they can just take this product and then just go for it. Because even if they had Ariba or if they had a success factor, there was always coordination with Microsoft Azure required, or any other cloud platform like Alibaba Cloud or your Google Cloud was required there. So there was always something which was required when it comes to overall wholesome solution for cloud in terms of SAP. So that's where the need for the BTP came in, or the some platform available to host their SAP dedicated applications came in, and then yeah, that's where this BTP basically emerged, and it's basically ensures your overall intelligent, sustainable enterprise, as we say. So it is intelligent because it is hosting your AI services, your data and analytics capabilities as well. And yeah, definitely sustainable is something which they are taking care of. They are reducing your carbon footprints. They are reducing a lot of things which were not being that considerable when it comes to GUI, because here now we are having it on cloud, so we need to ensure that the lesser we use the bandwidth, the lesser amount of garbage is created when it comes to cloud. So that's something which is being taken care. So overall, from an enterprise standpoint, we can just call it as a intelligent, sustainable enterprise. And your data integrity, confidentiality, we'll see it in coming slides as well, that overall your all these aspects which are required for any industry or any say client to basically host their solutions in the cloud, all of it is something which is very critical for them, whether it's your data integrity, confidentiality, availability, and the overall CIA triad which we talked about. So this is something which is being considered whenever any client wants to move to BTP. So we'll see that based on how it is being considered. But yeah, I think for any cloud, any client these days to go on cloud, I think this is what is still a major concern, because whenever we talk about cloud, there are various cybersecurity issues, various threats which we see. So for any organization to move to cloud, to move its database to the cloud, or to move its critical aspects or any financial related things to cloud, so these things becomes very critical. So these things are definitely taken care of in the BTP, and then that's why SAP took its own time, and then finally, when it was ready, it finally launched its full-fledged solution. And then, yeah, I think now many companies are moving to cloud who were having SAP on-premise systems, or some of them who were not having SAP, they were coming from a non-SAP background, and then they moved to SAP. So, yeah, I think it's because this platform is secure. It secures your confidentiality, availability, and integrity, the entire CIA triad. So that's where I think that trust is established. And yeah, I think finally organizations are moving to cloud. So I think, yeah, that's where BTP basically is picturized or placed to basically host your cloud applications. Also, it basically acts as a middleware also, because we still need to make sure that our on-premise products like S4HANA is there. S4HANA on-premise, when I say, sometimes it's ECC is also there, our GRC also is there, which is still on-premise. So if we need to connect to our cloud solutions, to our on-premise solutions, then yeah, BTP is again a platform where there's something which we will see, that with the help of that particular thing, or like let me call it, what is it called? Like it is called as cloud connector. So BTP basically hosts your cloud connector, which is again responsible for connecting your on-premise and cloud applications. So I think yeah, yesterday we got a query that okay, how S4HANA and BTP are interlinked, or how is BTP helping S4HANA in the overall methodology space. So we'll see it in coming slides as well. But yeah, I think you can just from a layman standpoint consider that if you want to connect any on-premise S4HANA system to your cloud application. So say if Ariba is there and S4HANA is there. So Ariba is on cloud, which is being hosted on your BTP, and you have your S4HANA on-premise, which is not hosted on BTP, but yeah, it is hosted on your on-premise setup. So how will you interlink? How will it communicate to each other? So that's where your BTP comes in as a proprietary SAP dedicated middleware, where you'll have your cloud connector hosted. You'll have your Ariba connected via cloud connector to BTP. And the same thing, your S/4HANA also will be connected to your cloud connector, which is hosted on BTP. So overall, you can imagine that with the help of BTP, that communication is being established between your cloud and on-premise.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So yeah, I think that's a brief about how you can picturize BTP, that why was it required, how did SAP paged for BTP, and then yeah, overall when it comes to security standpoint, also how is it proving beneficial for the clients. So coming to few of the IAM aspects of it. So we have a couple of services which are dedicated for maintaining your identity and access management. So some of these are your SAP Cloud Identity Services. So initially, again, SAP came up with BTP, but then it still had to use it for authentication. The Microsoft Azure was there, and then a lot of other parameters or services were required to host its own authentication mechanism. So when I say authentication, it's about how you log in. So today, if you want to log in, either you are using your user ID password, or you are using your single sign-on, or you are using the multi-factor authentication. So all of it was something which like a lot of vendors were available in the third party. So we had Okta, we had I think Microsoft had its own authenticator, which we still see it's very popular. So SAP had to come up with a dedicated authentication service for its own, so that whenever they are giving access to any application. So okay, hosting an application is one thing, that okay, if somebody needs to log into say any business related applications, let's say Ariba only. So if they want to log into Ariba, so they need to have something which is authenticating them that okay, they are the correct person who needs to go inside the system. So for it, yeah, SAP then came up with its own authentication mechanism or tool. So that's called your SAP IAS. So your SAP CIS is basically an overall umbrella which contains your two of the major services, which is your IAS and IPS. Initially, these were two different services which were not clubbed together. IAS used to act differently, IPS used to function differently. But then, yeah, overall, I think in last 1 year or 2 years, I think this overall got clubbed into one. And this overall is now called under one umbrella called as SAP Cloud Identity Services. So we'll see about each of the services in brief as well. But yeah, I think for now, as the name says, the main responsibility of your IAS is to make sure that your authentication responsibility is being taken care by it. And coming to IPS, as the name says, Identity Provisioning Services. So you need to have something which can provision it to the respective SaaS applications as well. So today, if you have Ariba, you have SuccessFactors, you have Concur, or you have any other non-SAP applications which are SCIM compliant, so that SAP can support it as well. So you need to have a dedicated service which can go there if you have raised a request for a role to be assigned to a person in SuccessFactors. So that's the responsibility of IPS here, that as soon as you raise that request, IPS will go and it will check in which SaaS application that is being requested to be provisioned, and then it will provision it there, and then it will confirm that okay, now this has been provisioned, or if it's not possible, it will confirm that as well. So that's the responsibility of your IPS basically, to go and then to provision to the respective SaaS application which it is being requested to. So yeah, so that's where your IAS and IPS basically comes in, where the overall provisioning part from start to end is being taken care by IPS. So this will see that okay, how does it work and all. So there's a lot of configuration related things we'll need to do to make it sync. But yeah, from a layman standpoint, yeah, IPS is responsible for provisioning to the respective cloud application. and IAS is basically responsible for authenticating any user to that cloud application. Though IAS is not only restricted to authentication, there are hundreds of other usages of IAS as well. Will I think not be able to cover in this training because this requires a dedicated amount of time to cover all the services which IAS provides. But yeah, I think the major service for which it was hosted or started with was your authentication. But yeah, post that there has been several upgrades into what IAS is capable of. So IPS still stands at what it needs to do because it's some of the major thing which it needs to do, which is your authentication for IAS and provisioning for IPS. But yeah, I think IAS has definitely matured over time, and then it is capable of doing much more than only authentication, if I say. Then finally, coming to your Access UAA service or your authorization and trust management service. This basically deals with your OAuth token. So this is something which requires a dedicated amount of time to explain you what does OAuth 2.0 token does. But you can just think of it that as soon as a user identity gets created, whether it's being created in BTP, whether it's being created in your Azure AD or in your SuccessFactors. So as soon as a user is hired in the system or hired for a company, so first is like his user ID gets created. So once that user ID is created, and then how does that, with the help of that user ID, we authenticate him, we authorize him the respective roles, and how is he able to finally log into the system and then perform his work is something which is handled by this authorization and trust management services. It ensures that your overall trust is established between your point of contact of user ID generation to finally the leveraging the relevant application which it is hosting. So yeah, that's where this Access UAA service will come in. So I think these three bundle services which we can say which are available in IAM, which we will need to learn more in order to ensure that we call ourselves as a BTP security consultant, because we need to be aware that these three are the major services which are responsible for controlling the overall security in the BTP space.
So in first 2 points, both the services, cloud identity services, in that we mentioned that it's for authentication, and the IAS also for the authentication, even though they are performing any other activities, but mainly we mentioned here it's both are for the authentication. So what is the difference in that?
You mean in the CIS and
yes, CIS and the IAS. Yeah, both are for the authentication. So how is the difference? What is the difference?
Yes, got it. So you can just consider that CIS is not an individual service. So CIS is basically just an umbrella or like a composite role, how we see, and then IAS or IPS are part of it. So initially there was no CIS. IAS was a separate service, IPS was a separate service. But then what SAP decided was, these two services need to work in combination. So then they came up with this new term called as cloud identity services. And then it basically that enhanced your lot of IAS capabilities as well, because IAS initially was responsible only for your authentication. But now, since it's included in the overall CIS umbrella, so overall you'll have a link is there. And in that CIS link, you have both your services embedded in it, IAS as well as IPS. So you don't have your services individually as IAS, IPS, though they are still being called like that. But now IAS is basically just an umbrella or just a composite role for cloud, you can say. And IAS and IPS are your single roles, which are part of your composite roles. So they are not your individual services anymore, which can be just used. So if you want to use IAS, you need to get CIS. If you want to use IPS, you need to get CIS. So CIS is basically something which is containing your both the services. And since IAS was included as part of in combination with IPS and overall part of CIS, the overall functionality of it also has lot of functionalities are being added to, and it's not being only restricted to your authentication right now. So yeah, hope you get it.
Okay. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Is this IAG replacement the SAP GRC as well?
No, initially it was picturized that way, but IAG is like a separate product and GRC would be a separate product. So the last version of GRC which is still there is your GRC 12.0. And IAG, when it was hosted, it was catering to only limited cloud applications. But yeah, now IAG is basically your product which is responsible for your governing the risk and compliance for your cloud applications. And GRC is still available, and then it is being picturized separately. You'll have a new version of GRC as well, which will be coming in. But yeah, IAG is not a replacement. IAG is something which is just helping you to ensure that whatever cloud SAP products you have, or some of the non-SAP also, you are just able to provision to it with the help of IAG. And yeah, both of them also work in combination with the help of IAG Bridge, which we'll see later in the slides. But both of them are separate products, being not as a competitor, but yeah, pitched as a separate products depending on the client's overall requirements, that what all products they have, where they want the governance, risk and compliance to be coming in.
Okay, means we have to implement both in the system, IAG and this GRC. Otherwise, we can implement any one thing.
So it depends on what all products you want to have the GRC around or the governance around. So if you are having a combination of say cloud and on-premise, then definitely you need to have both the products. But if you are having say only cloud products, then you can, if the client hasn't invested in GRC yet, then yeah, I think my recommendation would be just go ahead and directly choose IAG, because IAG is also capable of doing a lot of functionalities which GRC was. It's just there are few limitations, being GRC is a matured product which has been matured over 5 to 10 years, but yeah, IAG is there like almost I think 4 to 5 years now. So there are few customizations, few MSMP workflows and all which you still can't do. But itself they have added almost 10 to 12 different MSMP workflows. You can just pick and choose from them. But then yeah, I think for you to choose between GRC and IAG, or a combination of GRC and IAG, or maybe individually GRC or IAG, is something which will depend on what all products does the client have. If I think based on that, you need to take that call. Has any of you already have started working on any of these terminologies? Anybody who has used BTP, IAS, IPS, IAG, or maybe it's in pipeline, you are yet like you will be soon using it? Or anybody in the group who has already used it, and just let me know. Maybe I'd like to know their experience as well. Okay, so I think you all would be soon using it, even if you are not working on it right now, because I think as soon as the client moves to S4HANA, I think then, yeah, definitely it opens a pathway for a lot of cloud applications for client to just leverage directly, because SAP will be even telling them to use this, because this is how they can benefit more in terms of their investment, what they are doing. So I think you'll soon be seeing these discussions happening in your communications with the client as well. So it's good to know about these things. So I think, yeah, that's how let's move on for this. Then coming to data protection and privacy, I think, yeah, we discussed about it. It ensures that your overall encryption, data residency, or your personal data management, the regulations of GDPR, with the SOC compliance, etc., are definitely being adhered to. It's not like it is just bypassing this and then whatever data is there, it's available for everyone. It's your dedicated space in cloud you will be getting. And then depending on that, you can store your data there, and it will help you in ensuring that your overall data residency requirements, your data management for personal data, professional data, business data is something which is taken care of. So yeah, I think not something which we will work on a daily basis, but yeah, I think there are certain services which we are available, which we good for us to know that how does BTP do it. But yeah, from a DPR or data protection and privacy DPP standpoint, I think yeah, as BTP is definitely secured, so you can mention this in any discussions if you have with the client. Then yeah, so like how we do the application security, there's a separate team which is responsible for your network security as well. So from a network security standpoint as well, BTP is secured. So this is not something which is something we will do again, but yeah, from a firewall standpoint, from a WAF standpoint or web application firewall again. So this is something which is available as a security already in BTP. So any of your data available or any of your workflows running on BTP, they'll definitely be protected because these isolations are available. So it's not projected directly to anyone. So suppose your client is using a particular part or particular portion of your BTP. So it's not like that tomorrow if somebody else wants to see that, okay, what's going on there, he can just go and then even though he has a BTP account, he can just try to see it because there are these firewalls, there are these VPCs which are available, which basically isolates your overall customer environment or your individual environment as well. Then coming to our application security, we have certain dedicated services available for the developers to develop the respective custom query applications, custom codes, or custom integrations or by the integration consultant. So that's available. They can use it even for identifying any vulnerabilities in the custom code. There's a dedicated service which they can feel free to leverage it, or they can even create their own tools as well by customizing it. There are a lot of ready to use tools which are available. And then overall, from a security standpoint, yeah, we'll see it. I think, not sure. I think it takes a dedicated amount of time to show you how do we do the overall security in BTP. But yeah, I think from an overview standpoint, you can consider it. Yeah, there are services available and there are tools available which we can use to overall secure that. When we say about SODs in BTP, when we say about dedicated roles responsible for doing certain activities, so that all things are available as a standard. And even if we need to create the custom ones, yep, that functionality is also available. So there are things around roles, role collections, custom groups, which are available. So yeah, I think that's something which you can leverage to control the overall security of how any person can come in and then do the respective work that comes definitely in your application security. So those things are available. Just give me a minute. So we'll see as well. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so application security is with us or we have a separate team for the same?
No, application security will be on us. So we won't have any separate team. For network security, we'll have a separate team. For application security, it will be on us. So when
Yeah.
I talk about application security here, it's like the things related to the code scanning, to the development process. That's something which developers would need to do. But then we as security, application security team would need to ensure that we are providing them the requested access to the service where they can go ahead and then they can use the development environment for creating those customizations, and then we are giving them the respective access. So even in development environment there are different accesses which they would, like a developer would have only development access, but for making sure that whatever they develop is approved and then it goes on to the actual application where it needs to be used, there is a development manager or a separate manager access. That also is something which from a development team only will need to do, but that will be for a higher leader from a development team. So overall, what access to provide them in order to access that service and what they need to do inside the service is something what we will control. And then we need to see that there's a proper segregation in terms of what a developer is developing, and then he's not able to himself approve it and then post it directly, because as soon as they do it, it will be available for the exact business application for which he is developing that customization. So yeah, as an application security team, it's on us to ensure that that functionality is not bypassed, and then we are giving the right amount of roles and responsibilities to the respective people.
So here when we are mentioning it's microservices, so is it something else? Like we have already seen some services, right? So what is microservices here? The third point, container security.
Correct. So, I mean, microservices are, I mean, we'll not be diving that deep into micro level of services, but yeah, on a broad, I think there are services available which we will be using, like this, even your IAS, IPS. I mean, these are also services which are present in the BTP. And coming to microservices, then yeah, I think further they are again subdivided into a lot of services. But yeah, I think we'll not be diving deep into those level of things. We'll be having it only on a application level and at a security or a services level, that what service to be provided access to, and then what all services are available in BTP which we can leverage, because for each service there's a cost to it. If you're going for CIS, it contains a cost. You're going for IAG, it requires your subscription and licenses. So it then further has its own microservices which are responsible for doing the exact things. But yeah, I think that's something which SAP has not provided that level of access for us to dive into that. So we'll not be diving deep into the micro level of services. But yeah, from a application security standpoint, it would be the authorizations we can control with respect to what services we need to provide access. And then once we have provided access to a service, what the user needs to do inside that services is also something we have the flexibility to prevent the access to. So providing access to a service is one thing, and then for what the user can do inside a service is another thing. So both needs to work in as a and condition, and we'll be controlling basically that, and then creating, if required, any new custom roles, role collections, etc., to ensure that the overall security of the cloud is being maintained.
Yeah, because the terms are I'm not feeling that terms are related to the security work. It is something like the different, like code scanning, the container security, then the secure development lifecycle is something I'm not feeling like user admin work. It's something like
Yes,
additional.
yes.
That's why I asked that the application security is it with us or any other team is dealing with?
Correct. Yeah, I think these questions will come in, because initially the same query came to me as well when I started working on this. But then, yeah, what I realized over time was, I think we need to be aware of a lot of things which the developers would be doing, which the basis team would be doing, because there is nothing, when we say security in GUI as compared to security in cloud, it's a security in cloud is basically a club of lot of things which we would need to understand. We may not be doing it, but yeah, whenever you say this SDLC or secure development life cycle, so that's something we need to understand, that how does it work? Like, how does a developer create a code? What all things will he require to create that customization? And what all things you'll need to, first of all, create that environment in order for him to go there and create that code. Because initially you'll just get a blank BTP. So how do you set it up? How do you set up a development environment for him? What all things you'll need to do. So we'll need to learn all of this definitely. So that is your application security for cloud. So it's not like user admin definitely is a sub part of it. That's something we'll need to do. But apart from that also, there are a lot of things which you will need to learn around how does the things actually work in the cloud. So security in cloud is definitely a club of your developer, your security person, and a basis person. You can think of it that way. Even sometimes integration consultant as well, because here you'll see a lot of integrations happening between S4HANA to BTP, to BTP to IAG, BTP to Concur, or sometimes to non-SAP. So that time you can't just be a UAM consultant or only a user admin consultant, because you need to do these things. And then it's good if you have separate people who are doing these things, but then it's in a way it's not beneficial to us as well, because again we'll be restricted to the user admin work. So the better if we get to an exposure to multiple things, if we have less people for handling these things, because in that way you'll get to learn this. But yeah, you'll need to push yourself in learning this separately. I mean, like you are doing by taking this training right now, you have known about these things. So if you want to deep dive, you may go at your own pace, or go for any training, or maybe there are a lot of things available. But yeah, that the one thing which is that you need to upskill in things apart from security when it comes to cloud. So that's a crux of overall what I'm trying to explain.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, I think similarly these are some of the services which are available. It can be your alert notification service, it can be your audit log service. So these are some of the services which are responsible for your auditing and the compliance requirements. There are a bunch of other services which are available in BTP, hundreds of them are there. But I think, these are some of the ones from a security standpoint is helpful to us. So it can be like your audit log service is responsible for tracing what is happening in the cloud, which you like a change history kind of, you can say. So it is able to track that what a user has done in certain cloud application or in the BTP if he's using it, if you want to trace it. So I think these are some of the services which are quite handy, which we can leverage in order to ensure that our BTP platform is secure. And overall, if there is any malfunctioning or any thing which goes wrong, with the help of these services, we are able to track it. If there are any usage of anything is going beyond the expected usage. Then this alert notification service is responsible for telling us. It's basically an alert which will come to the admin, and then he'll get to know that, okay, this is how it's happening, because here there are multiple aspects in which you will use the BTP data. Either it's on a pay as a go basis, or on a particular subscription basis, that you have only this much subscription or this much related data which you can consume for a certain period of time. And then if it goes beyond that, then, or if you have set a certain limitation for any particular month, and if it's exceeding that, yeah, I think alert notification service is something which will give you that real-time alerts. And if for anything related to security events also, we can configure it in such a way that it provides us the security related alerts as well. And then, yeah, finally coming to your audits in the cloud as well, it will help you. There are security assessments which you can take the reports of, and coming to your SOC 1, SOC 2, IS 2700 or 27001. So I think this is something, all of it is compliant to. And yeah, coming to the different geographical regulations, GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA. Yeah, I think, and depending on the dedicated, so BTP has basically servers hosted in your Germany. You have a lot of servers in China. You have them in Singapore. You have in US. You have a lot of servers. So depending on, like, for a UK or a British client, they will prefer their BTP, if they are using their host, to be in the UK or the European Union servers only. So that's where you can basically choose that server. We'll see it maybe if time permits today. How do you choose which server you want to use when it comes to BTP? So I think that's where your geographical related regulations and data protection laws also can be prevented, because even though it's on cloud, but where does your cloud server is being hosted is something which you can control at the time of subscribing to your particular BTP account. And yeah, I think there are certain threat detection mechanisms as well. Like one of the important mechanism is your SIEM, or a security information and event management service, which is available. So whenever we talk about this, it's now like goes much beyond than the user admin related security. But yeah, these are the actual security related threats which we can see. So we need to learn more about how does SIEM work, what all things we need to configure when it comes to this, because all of it will be directly working on a real-time basis, and then working with your BTP, working with the dedicated cloud applications. And then it will ensure that if there is any threat, it is something which we are getting to know in a real time. And then we are ensuring that we have the right amount of services available, or the right amount of preparation available with us, so that we can counter it, whatever attack maybe we are expecting as an alert coming from your SIEM. So similarly, if there are any security incidents or breaches, that's something which we can try to do in your BTP as well. So finally, coming to your best practices. So I think this is something which is definitely relevant, but the more you'll actually work on BTP, then you'll be able to maybe relate to it, that how does the best practices exactly work. So yeah, I think I'll just pause here. Maybe you can just go through it. I think these are not something very different from what we do for our on-premise as well. But yeah, I think just feel free to go around it. Any queries in this slide? Anything which is not clear? I think it's all good. We can proceed to the next slide. So as we talked about, it's your cloud identity services, which is basically bundle of your IAS and IPS. So here, as we see, that your cloud identity services is showing currently your IPS, which is identity provisioning. Then it's your identity directory it is being connected to. So this is basically your identity directory is nothing but something which is being stored in your IAS. It acts as a user store. And finally, if we try to picturize this, then your CIS is overall responsible. So now we see that it is proving to as BTP as well. So BTP, though it is a platform as a service, but since there are users which are hosted on it, there are role collections which are created on BTP. So overall, your CIS is responsible even for provisioning in your BTP as well, because when CIS is acted, we add BTP as a application as well. So BTP, along with providing a platform, is also the software as a service in it as well. So your IPS also helps you in providing roles to the respective users which are present in BTP. So if you have configured it correctly, if you trigger that, then even if there are new users getting created in BTP with the help of IPS, you can provision the users the respective roles or the role collections in BTP. You can provision it to the respective SaaS applications like Ariba, SuccessFactors, or any other SaaS applications related to SAP. And then SAP S/4HANA Cloud, which is again one of your SaaS applications. So for it also, now you have your IPS that's responsible for provisioning it to your S/4HANA Cloud as well. And then if you still are having your on-premise systems or the third-party system, then yeah, I think IPS won't be able to directly provision it. But yeah, I think for it you can still make sure that your IDM is connected to your identity directory or your IAS here, and then further it connects with it, and then whatever is being provisioned via IDM to your SAP on-premise or to the third-party on-premise systems. So that also is something which is communicated to IPS that okay, this is being done, and then overall in the tracker, I think it's being maintained at a one place that okay, if we have a combination of on-premise and BTP setup, then that's something which is being taken care of for the cloud ones by IPS, and for the on-premise ones, it can be your IDM or it can be your GRC, which is doing that provisioning. Yeah, I think there are a lot of configuration related things, lot of things we'll need to set up when it comes to make sure that this entire thing which we are seeing in just a snip is able to run through. So yeah, I think that requires a lot of configurations related to IAS, IPS, BTP. MFAs are required if we need to be there. There are a lot of OData service, no, not OData, like OAuth services, OAuth protocols will need to follow. So yeah, multiple things which comes into picture, but yeah, in a crux, I think this is how your CIS overall functions. And yeah, I think you can, from a theory standpoint, you can feel free to read it. You have your SSO capabilities as well, which are provided in it. So overall, like this basically assists your entire BTP security in a very efficient way, and then it automates a lot of things which otherwise we would have need to do it manually by going into every application. So some of the features of CIS, as we say, so these are all the functionalities which are available for when we host it. So I think yeah, we have talked about it. It is nothing different from your on-premise related things what we did. So similarly, you can think about it as something which is being done directly in the cloud. So I'll just pause here, and then maybe you can go through these features if there's anything you want me to provide.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Input on, you can let me know. I'll do that. Good with everyone. Let me pick the identity federation. I think this is something which would be new for most of you unless you have already used this term or worked on the identity federation. So let me just try to relate it to some of the in layman methodologies. How would you understand this identity federation? Because this is something which is like on a technical term. If I go, I can try to definitely explain you a lot of bits. But okay, let's try to think of it in something like a common example if I try to give you. So just try to think that you have a keychain maybe which you keep with you every day. And then that keychain is basically having your keys to your house, to your car, to your office, and several other places. So it's basically a keychain containing almost all the necessary keys which you would use in your day-to-day life. It can be for your house, car, and your office. And then each key is basically different, as we know, and each is basically accessing each location. We need to use it for car. We need to use our car keys. For home, we need to use our home keys. So we need to use it for at the dedicated place. So that's how that bunch of keychain is when we have it. So managing all these keys again is a hassle, especially if we keep on adding more and more keys. So tomorrow, if you got a bike, you need to get a keychain for a key for your bike. If you are again having other items which you want to again have a key for, so you'll be adding it. So it becomes a hassle to store that more and more keys. So just think of identity federation in cloud services basically like having a magic key that can basically open your multiple locks. So instead of carrying a bunch of keys or either instead of bunch of keys, I am saying try to think of it as remembering multiple passwords for the different type of online services. So if you want to log into IAS, IPS, if you want to log into Ariba, if you want to log on to BTP, or when it comes to cloud, there are a lot of services which will keep on adding. So you'll need to remember multiple passwords for this. So instead of doing this, you just have a magic key, and then with the help of just that magic key, you are able to open all the locks. So in the digital world or in this online world, what we see, so this magic key basically will allow you to log in once and then get access to the various online services and applications without the need for you to log in again and again for each of them. So this is basically done by setting up a trust between the place that checks your identity, like basically a security guard who basically knows you and then he will let you in, and the services you want to use, like for the different rooms you want to enter, your car you want to operate, the bike you want to operate. So that magic key basically allows you to log in once where this entire thing would be checked only for once, and post that it will be just an easy step in to whatever services where you have access to, you can just access it. So basically, in short, the identity federation as a term is a term which helps you manage and use the multiple online services in a simpler and in a safer fashion, which you can say by reducing the number of passwords where you would need to remember, and it overall makes it easier to access everything you would need with just a single sign-on. That's in general the identity federation when we say that this basically acts it in this way. So yeah, if we go into technical terms, how does it do, what does it do, what all roles and role collections we need to map to the respective groups and then try to leverage this. So yeah, that will go into a longer discussion. But yeah, in general, you can, whenever you think of identity federation, just try to relate to this example, which I just provided, and then it will help you in understanding it in a very layman form.
Here, identity federation and SSO is performing the same actions. So both needs the only one login, and then it will be allowed for the different applications.
Yes, correct. So I mean, SSO basically is something which we will establish for individual applications, but identity federation is something which basically will help you in connecting to SSOs for different applications via some configurations which we will do in the initial part. So if you are, say, logging in initially to your BTP, so we basically will ask you to log in via identity federation, so that once you do it, so all the individual SSOs which we have established, the identity federation will connect you to those. So if you don't have identity federation, then yeah, you'll maybe need to every time either enter a password or either do something which enables your SSO. So both of them ideally works together. But yeah, identity federation is a separate configuration which we will need to do, and SSO is a separate thing which we will need to do for individual application.
So it means the business, if have CIS in the system, it's on them whether they want this federation to get enabled or the SSO. As per the requirement, they will be doing it, right?
Yeah, as per the requirement, it will be done. But yeah, I mean, identity federation is something which we should promote, because if the users are accessing multiple online applications, then with the help of identity federation, they can just log in with SSO initially with the help of identity federation. And then, yeah, they can just access whatever applications they have access to without needing to again sign in or again enter the passwords. So from a configuration standpoint, we need to do it separately, SSO for individual applications and identity federation overall. But yeah, from a user standpoint, it's basically just a single point of SSO, you can say, which he just logs in.
A difference in the configuration.
Yeah, correct. So from a technical standpoint, it's not like if you just do the identity federation, it will simply work for the end users for every application. So for establishing SSO, that's a separate configuration which you will need to do for individual apps. And for identity federation to be established, there are further things, because what SSO will do, SSO will just ensure that a user logs in without requiring the user ID password. But coming to identity federation, you need to establish certain things which basically, as soon as a user logs in, so a user logs into BTP. So user logged into BTP because he had certain access assigned to him in BTP which he can use. That's why he was able to log in. But as soon as he logs in, if he wants to say go to CIS, or if he wants to go to a business application, say Ariba, so how will a system know that this particular user who is logged in with some different user ID in BTP, and he might have a different user ID as per how Ariba sets it up in Ariba, and then all the roles and authorizations which a user has in Ariba might be different than what he has in BTP. So in BTP, he might only be having a display access, but in Ariba, he might have some admin related access, which he is a SME of. So how to relate his BTP identity to the Ariba identity is something which we would need to establish at the time of identity federation configuration. So with the help of that identity federation, we will establish that, okay, this user in BTP and the same user in Ariba is connected via what common things. So that's something from a configuration standpoint we'll need to do. But from an end user standpoint, yeah, it's just a SSO for him at the initial also, and at the even the Ariba login also. But yeah, just to establish his identity in BTP, Ariba, or any other application which he has access to, that's something we will need to do it from our end to ensure that the system identifies that he is the correct person who we are giving access, and then he is able to log in via SSO.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So I think user management, MFA, I think all of it is something which we know all about. So maybe it's not something we need to discuss more. But if there's anything, you can feel free to ask me. But yeah, for doing user management, MFA, I think there are separate configuration related which needs time to discuss on. But yeah, that's something as a feature maybe you can think of it, which is available. MFA also is readily available for you to directly use. You can even use your biometrics and all which are available right now. But yeah, this is not something which is used majority of the clients. But yeah, that is something which is available as a MFA. But yeah, the authenticator tools or the SMS calls, I think that's something which is popular, that's accepted in this as well. So then we have your integration with the various identity providers as well, which CIS offers. So if you are continuing to use your Microsoft Azure AD, you can still continue to use it. We have it as a third-party integration also is a feature which is provided. So if you don't want to use CIS as your initial identity provider, if your IDs are being created in Azure, then you can just feel free to use that as well. And then there are various corporate SAML based identity providers as well, which it can collaborate with, and you can use that as well. So these initially were the things which bases used to manage, or your configuration, or your more on the configuration or those sides. But again, now this is something which, if we get a chance, if there is no separate team, we need to deal with this integration with the IDPs as well. And yeah, there's an access control feature in CIS. As I mentioned, it's not only restricted to your authentication now, it has a lot of other functionalities which we saw above as well. So it has your access control as one of the powerful mechanism which it has. So it will help you in ensuring that you control the access of the user in the various cloud applications with the help of the roles, the permissions, the attributes, the groups which are available in CIS for you to use. So I think, yeah, this we have seen it. The CIS overall will help you enhance the security by providing a seamless user experience, and it reduces the overall complexity. So just understand, if CIS was not there, then how many times you will need to do the maintenance. So when it comes to S4 in on-premise or ECC, it was only at one place where we would need to do user admin. But since these all are individual services, so in BTP we'll need to do, in CIS is not there, so in Ariba we'll need to do, in Concur, and like there are multiple places where we'll need to go, and we'll need to ensure that for that person who is having a certain ID in BTP, a different ID in Ariba, a different ID in SuccessFactors, a different ID in, say, on-premise environment. So depending on that, we'll need to do the user admin work in a lot of places. So with the introduction of this CIS, it reduces the overall complexity, And if we are using the identity federation effectively, then yeah, even the overall complexity of SSO, overall complexity of identifying that particular person in different applications is something which, with the help of CIS, we can definitely achieve. And then it reduces the overall complexity and even the effort which we would be spending in multiple cloud applications in order to ensure we are doing the things correctly. Because if any of the things goes wrong, then definitely either the user won't be able to access, or he'll be able to access some things which he is not authorized to use. So yeah, these are some of the things which are there. I think we have already talked about the trust relationships, user mappings. So I think we'll move on. Then finally, coming to the last part of this, overall, it's your SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance, or in short, your IAG. So this is all the services which your individual IAG service offers you. So you can try to relate each of these services to your GRC as well, because this is again GRC for cloud, but it's named as IAG because it's a separate product which SAP is trying to project. So we need to see it in this way, that it's a separate product which is not in the same way in which how GRC does. So it also does the similar functionalities, but it's not as efficient, I would say, as how GRC was. So we need to just relate it to those services in GRC. But yeah, there are some things which we need to understand, that there are certain limitations in these functionalities. But yeah, I think as a starter, don't think about any limitations and all. Just think of it as a tool which is provided by SAP to govern your overall cloud related products which are hosted. So coming to services, it provides you your access analysis service, which is nothing but your ARA functionality, you can say. So your access risk analysis in cloud is something which is a service provided to you with the help of IAG. You can use it to analyze access, refine user assignment, mitigate access, manage controls overall. Then it provides you the role design or the BRM functionality, which we have in GRC, where you can create the roles, you can optimize the roles, you can streamline the overall governance with the help of business roles, single roles, like that. That functionality is available. Then finally, you have your access request service, which is nothing but your same access request service which we had in GRC. So here you can create a service, you can ensure that you have the right level of workflows which you are choosing. If you want to choose multiple workflows for multiple type of requests, be it a new user request, be it a old user or a modify user request, be it a termination request, be it a firefighter request. So for all of it, you will be basically leveraging the access request service. It will help you in optimizing the overall workflow. And if you want to have your dedicated approvers set up at each stage, you can continue doing that here as well. Then finally, you have your access certification, which is nothing but your UAR for your cloud. So you can finally set it up either on an annual basis, biannual basis, on a monthly basis, depending on how you want to run the access certifications for your cloud application. And finally, the other service which is not completely available for all the cloud products is your privileged access management or your firefighter service for cloud. So that's also something which is available for you in IAG. So currently it's available only for your S4HANA public cloud. That also is there in the beta version. But yeah, I think the plan is to put it for a lot of other SAP cloud products as well. So these are like the overall bunch of services which IAG provides you. Has any of you already worked this tool, or maybe in planning to use this tool soon in your client engagements? Has it been pitched upon? Okay. I think if it's not yet, I think it will be soon, because this is the only tool available which is a SAP standard tool, although there are third-party tools which are available. But yeah, I think that they are still third-party. They are not as efficient as how SAP is providing you IAG with. And then since there are continuous updates happening in each of the services which are mentioned, and new functionalities getting added every month, so it is becoming more and more reliable now to be used. So that's how we'll need to see it. So coming to individual requests, what does it do? So maybe I'll I'll just pause here. You can just go through it. So definitely it works in one thing to notice. The IAG doesn't have its own services which basically work. It works in conjunction with your CIS or your IAS and IPS. So IAG uses the functionalities of IAS and IPS to ensure that all the services which we saw above, whether it's your access analysis, role design, access request heavily uses your IAS IPS. So I think role design access analysis can still, I think they hardly use it because it's something which happens in the IAG engine only. But yeah, coming to your PAM, coming to your access certification, coming to your access request, I think these three services inside IAG heavily use your IAS and IPS because they need to continuously interact with your cloud applications. So yeah, I think that's where your IAS and IPS will come in picture again whenever you try to implement IAG, because IAG is again software as a service or a just application which is hosted on BTP. So it will leverage the functionalities of BTP. And when I say functionalities of BTP, it's again from a security standpoint, your CIS, which comes into play, where you will need to ensure that it is also set up in a way that IAG is able to use these services. And if there are any modifications required, you can feel free to adjust the individual services accordingly. So this is a brief about how would you use your access request service. Coming to role design, the important or a good part about this is it uses your machine learning methodology or machine learning power as well, if I can say it that way. That like if you want to create a role in like a business role here or a normal role in our normal GUI, it's something where we need to decide that okay, we are creating a role, what catalogs will go inside it, what T codes will go inside it. But you can use a machine learning. So there's something called as candidate business role in IAG, where what it does is if you select say 2 users, or if you select certain say business processes, and then you just say that okay, for these 2 business processes, help me in creating the business roles. So what it will do is it will just look at that business processes. It will look at okay, what all T codes are present inside it, what all Fiori apps are present inside it, and then it will basically give you a bunch of roles which you can create. It will just go through it. It will identify the SODs inside it, and then it will just give you a sample of business roles which you can just go ahead and create it directly. So it will take into consideration the SODs. It will take into consideration the different type of functionalities which each T code or Fiori app is doing. With the help of this, you can get basically a bunch of rules which you can create. I mean, which ideally we would be thinking and then we would be creating it. But with the help of machine learning getting embedded, we are getting to know at least the samples that okay, these are the different type of rules which we can create. So that's something which is helpful. It is not something which is completely full-fledged available, which you can just rely on. We definitely need to go through the results and see if that's something which is really something we would like to adopt or something we would like to do it on our own as well. But yeah, I think that's a good service which I have used, although it's not full-fledged. But yeah, at least for the reference part, it's good. You can use it. So it provides you both ways. There's something called as business role, which you can just go ahead and create. It's the same way which we created for our P also. And there's something called as candidate business roles. So that's basically a functionality where you can use your machine learning capabilities and AI capabilities by selecting certain business services and selecting certain groups, where you can just ask that based on this, just help me in creating what all business roles are possible. That also is something which you can leverage when it comes to role design. Then I think access certification is still the same how we used to do it. You can run it based on your users, you can run it based on your roles, and then you can select whether the request goes to your role owners or whether the request goes to the managers or to anybody else as well if you want to point. So it still works in the same fashion as our GRC UAR works. It's just that it will just target your cloud applications and not your on-premise one. It's a certification for your cloud. Finally, access analysis is nothing but your risk analysis for your. So I think this is where IAG has an edge over any other third-party application, because it helps you in identifying the risks in the cloud, identifying the SODs in the cloud, having a rule set dedicated to each of the cloud applications. So it will help you in ensuring that you have the right amount of standard data available which you can use, and you can customize it based on your individual client preferences for your access analysis. Then coming finally to your PAM or your firefighter ID service. So this is available as a firefighter ID. As we all know, if there's any elevated access required, then definitely this is some ID which we can request access to. We can log in with this into the respective cloud application and then do that activity like how we used to use it in our normal ECC or S4HANA on-premise systems as well. But this is currently not full-fledged available for all the cloud, because PAM in cloud is something which is still need more maturity to come in, because as we know that creating an identity for that user itself and managing that one user identity itself is a challenge. So if that user has dual identities, say here in PAM, if he has a own PAM ID, so for that other application to understand that, okay, this user is logging in, but he's logging in with a different account for only limited amount of time. So this is something which is still being worked upon, and it will need some time to again mature so that we can call it that we have something called as firefighter available for all the cloud applications. So this is a PAM service which is available, which you can maybe start using it in near time for all the cloud applications. Right now, it's only available for your S4HANA public cloud, but that too in the beta version as per the last update, what I know. Then finally, it's your IAG bridge. So this scenario will come into handy for the clients who have invested a lot into already their existing GRC solution, and then they are procuring the cloud applications as well. So for them to continue leveraging what the investments they have done in GRC, but also to ensure that they are able to do the compliance related activities or the provisioning in the cloud also in an automated fashion, then this IAG bridge comes into picture, where basically you would be able to use all the functionalities of IAG, but you will also be not losing out on the customizations which you would have done in GRC. So if I try to give you one scenario, it's like you will be still raising a request in your GRC, and then that request will go through all the approvals or the SOD checks. SOD checks for cloud will definitely happen in IAG, but the initial approval, say a manager stage, happens in your GRC. Then finally, if there are any provisioning required in your on-premise applications, it happens in GRC. Then if it detects that, okay, a cloud application is also there, then it will just send a message to your IAG. So your IAG then will do a risk analysis check based on whatever rule sets you have configured in IAG. So it will do that check, and if it all is working fine, it will provision it to the respective cloud application. Then it will again send a message back to your GRC that, hey, I have provisioned this to this certain cloud application, or if not provisioned, it will tell that message also. And then depending on that, GRC will finally complete that request. So you are not using your IAG workflow, you are using your GRC workflow, because you have two cloud applications, but then you have multiple on-premise applications. And then there are a lot of customizations which you have done in GRC, which are not possible yet in IAG. So in that fashion, you can try to use the best of both worlds, if I say it that way, and you can continue to use your IAG as well as your GRC. So that's in short about your IAG bridge. But I think to function this, there are a lot of configurations which we'll need to look into, which requires a dedicated amount of time if we dive into that. But in short, this is how your IAG bridge would work. So your IAG basically is offered into two parts. One is your IAG bridge, other is your IAG complete edition or the integration full edition, where only your IAG is present, and then it is capable of doing all the things which GRC is doing, but with some of the limitations which are there for customizations which are not yet available in IAG. So I think that is the last topic for the overall IAG topic, IAG bridge. And I think if there's anything which you want to know or have any concerns, just feel free to let me know. I think these cloud topics definitely you'll need to take time to go through it. You'll need to see how soon can you get into a project which uses this. The more you'll get to know about it in the actual client environment again, even for S4HANA, even for Fiori, even for this cloud things, the more you will learn about it. And I think that's it I would like to say.